Howdy and welcome to episode 68 of T-Shirts and Shawls. I'm Karen and today is Thursday, January 10th, 2019, New Year. So for those of you who have watched the podcast before, you're probably wondering, especially if you didn't see on Instagram or on Ravelry, did I finish that final project in the Opado challenge for the Indie Design Gift Along? Unfortunately, no, I didn't finish it in time, but it's okay. I'm happy with the 7 projects that I did get done. Yeah, so I tried, didn't get it done. It's fine. It didn't add too much stress. I knew like the 2 days before that there was just no way I was going to get done. So I just kind of relaxed and took it easy for those last 2 days. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get started with today's episode. So I wasn't sure what to put this segment, the topic that I want to talk about, what segment to put it into, because it doesn't really fit anywhere. It would be a completely new segment. So I decided to just make it the shirt segment, and I'm wearing a Roundtable Yarns shirt for today. So basically with the thoughts of the new year, a lot of times people make New Year's resolutions, but instead of resolutions, the past few years, I've been more looking at goals. Things that I want to accomplish over the next year. As part of that, I usually pick a word that I want to kind of use to define my year and to, as I'm trying to decide things and make choices about what I'm doing, kind of think about that word and whether or not the choice that I'm making is going to help make the year that thing that I want for the year. So this year's word is joy. And the reason that I picked that is because I have felt a bit bogged down by just the day-to-day tasks over the past year. Both day-to-day tasks in my personal life and then also in Roundtable Yarns. Just, I enjoy dyeing yarn, but when you're kind of just dyeing the same colors over and over again, it kind of becomes this repetitive task, and some of the enjoyment of what I really love about dyeing is not always there. And I've just been feeling like I haven't been not that I haven't been excited, because there are things that I've been excited about, but that I haven't fully embraced excitement, that I haven't been just overall excited about what I've been doing the past year. Like I said, there have been things that I've been excited about, and it's not just been all completely doldrums, but overall that feeling of being bogged down I've been having. And so in trying to think about how to get rid of that feeling and embrace joy, I've been trying to figure out what has made me feel that bogged down feeling. And some of it is doing new things, trying new dyeing techniques and other types of things. So that is something that I'm going to be exploring this year. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But really, I think what has happened is that I have this picture in my head of where and when I say I mean things like Roundtable Yarns, things like this podcast, where I should be at this point in my business journey. And I am not there. And it makes me feel discouraged, bad, and just down, because I have not reached those goals that are really not real goals. They're kind of arbitrary. They're kind of things that I have, goals that I have made because I'm comparing myself to others, when really I should just be thinking about what I want and what I need, and not fall into this whole comparison type of thing. Wally is over here on the table, hopefully not getting into anything too bad. Anyway, so it's these very large goals that I think that I should have, that I'm not meeting and therefore feeling bad about, where really these are goals that really aren't what I really want to do. So why am I having them? Why am I feeling bad that I'm not reaching them? So I do want to be transparent and actually give you specific information and numbers. So first of all, I am almost to the 4-year anniversary of Roundtable Yarns. I believe it was January 20th. I did write it down so I would remember, but I didn't check again. But I believe it's January 20th. Yeah, I think that's right. Will be the 4-year anniversary of when I announced to the public Roundtable Yarns. I didn't have any yarn that I sold on that day or available to sell on that day, but that was the big announcement type of thing. Anyway, so that is also something that I've been thinking about. Okay, it's the 4-year mark. Again, you know, this is really the time where things should be expanding and growing rapidly, and I'm not seeing that. And I'm gonna like, spoiler at the beginning, I am okay with where I am now. Hi, Wally's doing a close-up. I am okay where I am now. Today I'm feeling okay. The past year I have not felt okay, and that has been the problem. So I just want to say that as I'm talking through this, I am working on accepting this, and I'm feeling a lot better about things. But I do want to give you kind of the background and the history. Okay, so 4 years of Roundtable Yarns. Every year I have seen growth in sales, which has been fantastic and amazing. And I've been really proud of what I've done. But last year I put a sales goal of a particular dollar amount, and I based it upon, I had a percentage growth year to year, so I based it on that percentage growth, and it was a pretty large jump from 2017 to 2018. But I thought, no, you know, I've met that percentage each year. It's possibly doable. And then I did not meet that goal. And I could tell kind of as the year was progressing that I wasn't meeting that goal, because I broke it down by month. Like, I need to sell X dollars per month or at this event to be able to kind of be on target for that goal. And so I knew pretty early on that I was not likely to make that goal, and I didn't. And instead of being proud of what I did, because I, again, increased sales, it may not have been the same percentage of increase from the previous years, but there was an increase. And instead of being proud of that, Wally really wants his limelight, I felt bad because I hadn't made that big number that I really thought at the beginning wasn't really reachable, but I thought, hey, that's what the percentages are telling me that I can do, so that's going to be my goal. And I felt bad about it, instead of feeling good about the accomplishments I did have. And also, I get such great joy, so there's the word, out of seeing you guys get excited about my yarn, use my yarn. I mean, that's the best feeling. Use my yarn, show me your projects and how excited you are with how your project has turned out. And that happens pretty frequently. Again, maybe not in super huge numbers, but it's pretty often. And that's exciting and wonderful. And just because I didn't reach this almost arbitrary number in sales doesn't mean that Roundtable Yarns is not successful or not something that is going well. I feel like things are going well. I've mentioned this before. If Roundtable Yarns ever gets to the point where it is not paying for itself, then unfortunately I would have to close up shop. But it's paying for itself. And no, I'm not making much profit. It's still, expenses are still pretty high up there. That's something I'm going to work on this year, trying to get expenses down. But I have been in the black every year since after the first year. So, it kind of depends on how you define success. And do I really need to make you know, $100,000 in sales. That was not my goal, by the way. It was low, way lower than that. But do I really need that? Why do I need that? Why is that important? Because when it comes right down to it, if I think about my my dye setup, I don't think that at my current setup I could dye enough yarn to sell $100,000 worth of yarn in a year. I just don't think that is physically possible with the setup that I currently have. So, and again, 100,000 is like way more than the numbers I'm talking about. I'm just using that as an example. So if it's not even physically possible, or it would mean so much stress and work, or hiring people to help out quite a lot, that's not really what I want. I mean, I don't know why I'm trying to reach for something that would make my current setup not sustainable. So so kind of some of the reality of that is really starting to reach in. Why am I reaching for something that really is not ultimately important? Why am I not enjoying what I am seeing of you guys using my yarn and liking to see it and to get it, enjoying reading the stories? That's the important part. And like I said, in Roundtable Yarns is not losing money. So again, that's the important part. Why am I not embracing that success? Because I have some weird number that I haven't reached. That seems really stupid. So that's one of the things I want to do this year. I want to take joy in what I have accomplished and what I am doing, and take joy in you guys, which I do. I just feel like sometimes I don't appreciate it as much as I really should. So that's what I want to do. The other thing in numbers that has made me feel bad is we are on, I think, 2.5 years of this podcast, where I've been pretty consistent with releasing episodes, and the viewership number is really small. It is, I checked this morning, and there are 195 subscribers, but usually most videos don't get that many views even. Usually, like the first week or so, maybe there's like 50 to 60 people that view it. And then maybe gradually it builds more viewers over time. Whereas I've compared myself, so again, it's that comparison trap. I've compared myself to another knitting podcast who has been around for about the same time. This particular podcast is a couple of months older than me. So we've been around for about the same time. So I have under 200 subscribers. Oh, Wally, sorry about that. This other podcast has 32,200. That's a huge difference. And I have kind of gotten down on myself, like, why is that podcast so much more successful than this one? What is that podcast doing that I'm not? Why am I mean, I'm not even at 1,000. I'm still, under 200. And that podcast has 32,000 subscribers. I mean, that just is crazy. But then I started thinking about it, and again, realized that, is that subscriber number really that important? I do think that podcast has a lot of engaged people that are commenting on things. But what's important to me, and I mentioned this before, is the community, is the discussion, and the fact that you guys do actually come over to Ravelry and talk about the episode. You do post here on YouTube. You participate in the knit along. Again, it's not huge numbers, but you guys are there. And you are consistently there. I'm consistently, releasing the podcast episodes. You're consistently coming to the discussion. And why should I need to worry about trying to get 32,000 people to do that when I really love our little group? It might be little. I'm kind of starting to think, like small but mighty. I mean, might not be huge numbers, but I love the community that we have, no matter what size it is. And when you get larger numbers, the likelihood that there's going to be people in there that are maybe not as nice or community oriented increases. And perhaps getting too large could mean kind of destroying some of that feel of closeness that I think a lot of us have developed. Like I said, my most favorite thing is when you guys talk to one another. That it's not just me talking to you or you talking to me, but when you guys talk to one another. That I think is just amazing and incredible. And I don't ever want it to become a community where people don't want to come to because they're afraid, because there are some bad seeds in there that that make the community not as enjoyable. And it's just a numbers thing. When you add, the more people you add, the more likely it becomes that there's going to be someone or some people in there that bring down the community. And I would much rather have a small positive community. Not saying that there can't be a negative person that comes in even in a small community, but again, the likelihood is higher if you have higher numbers. So why am I feeling like I need to get to 32,000? I think that's just kind of insane. But even 1,000, why do I feel like I need to get there? What is that going to get me? Because I'm enjoying what we have going now. And sure, I mean, I would love to have more people also enjoy the community. But why am I not appreciating the 195 of you guys who have hit the subscribe button, and those of you who do come over and write posts and take the time to watch this? I mean, really, you sit down and you listen to me talk for an hour. That just, that's incredible. Why am I not appreciating that much? Why am I comparing myself to somebody else and trying to reach goals that really aren't that important to me? My goal is community, and if that community is not huge, that's fine. I would rather have a close-knit community rather than huge numbers and people don't really even know one another. There's just so many people that it's hard to really get to know one another. That's not what I want. I like the smallness. I like, I don't have a lot of orders on my online website, so I am able to, for each order that goes out, I write a little personal note on the packing slip. While he's coming in front of the camera again, I write a personal note on the packing slip. There are people that I've seen in like a Dyer Facebook group that said that they have so many orders each day that there's no way that they can take the time to write that personal note on the packing slip. And I just think, some days I'm like, I wish I had that many orders. But then I'm like, no, I really don't. Because if I get so many orders that I truly cannot take that time to write a personal message. And even if it's just, thank you for your order, I hope you enjoy the yarn, which is kind of my default personal message. But I handwrite that on every packing slip. If I get to the point where I can't do that feels bad to me, not having that personal touch. And so again, I'm wondering, why am I striving for these large numbers when really it is the personal connections and the that close community that is important to me? Why big numbers? Why is that a goal? So all this is, long story short, I want to enjoy, so both joy and enjoy, I guess, are kind of my words. I want to enjoy where I am and not keep striving and reaching for more when I am happy with what I've done over the past 4 years of Roundtable Yarns. I'm good. I'm at a point where I can handle the amount of dyeing I need to do. Why do I feel like I need to reach some really high arbitrary number? I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. I would rather have a small, close-knit, supportive community than a huge, big numbers where I don't, get to know people individually. I want that attention and that closeness. So all that to say, joy. I'm going to enjoy what I have and what I've accomplished and what I'm doing, and just be happy about it. I have another finished object and a finished sweater object. This is the Let Go cardigan, 1-2 sleeves. That was what I was waiting on for so long. So the back of it has all of the cables down the back. And if you've watched the podcast, you know that I made a mistake in the front. And if you look at the pattern, it's supposed to have this nice like swingy front that comes kind of angled like that. I don't have that because I completely missed the instruction that said continue the increases through the rest of the body. Yeah, missed that. But anyway, it is a nice cardigan. I don't have it right now, but I have a little shawl pin that I used to close it up right here to take pictures. I think I would rather do that than try to add any type of buttons, or I can just leave it open. It's not a cardigan that needs to close. Anyway, this was on the needles for about 1.5 years, much longer than I had expected it to be on the needles, but I'm thrilled to have it done. So the sleeves were a bit of an adventure. I talked about the first sleeve, how I tried the flexi flips to start with. I actually didn't like that. Then I moved to a very small circular needle, didn't like that, and then ended up doing 2 circulars, which is besides DPNs is my kind of preferred method for doing small circumference. So I started 2 DP. I think this was the first sleeve and this was the second. Maybe it's the other way around. Anyway, so I did the 2 circular needles from the beginning of the sleeve. The sleeve felt much better. It felt like it went faster. The only thing is that I had an issue with the length of the sleeve. So I was counting the cables to see like how many cables there were on the first sleeve so I could have the same number and the same length on the second sleeve. And I counted 13 cables on one sleeve and 12 cables on the other, but when I lined them up side by side, the cables were matching up perfectly. And it seemed like it was the same number, so it was kind of weird. I tried over and over again counting and matching up, and I don't know what was going on. But I finally decided, since they were matching up one to one, that I had the same, and I went ahead and did the ribbing and bound off. But ultimately, it looks like the sleeves are slightly different length. I pulled this one down a bit to make it a little bit longer, but this one does seem like it's a little bit shorter. And some of the people at my knitting group said, "Oh, remember you did all different kinds of needles on the one sleeve, and then the 2 circulars on the other sleeve. So of course your gauge is probably going to change, from the different types of needles. So even though I maybe matched up the cables, my gauge was probably off a bit, and that would probably account for the differences in the sleeve length. So anyway, it's fine. It's not like a huge enough difference that it really seems to make a big deal. But I did have a little moment of panic as I was finishing the sleeves, because I got to the ribbing and I started doing, I think I did 1, maybe 2 rounds of the ribbing. And I mean, it has roughly 2.5 inches of ribbing here. So I'd just done 1, maybe 2 rounds of the ribbing, and then all of a sudden I looked down and I realized I was at the end of my yarn. I knew that I was kind of running low and it would probably be pushing it to get the sleeve done, but I was out. And I thought, oh dear, what do I do? Because I still have at least 2 inches of ribbing to go. How do I handle this? Because I thought that I was out of yarn. I thought that was my last skein. So I searched through my yarn closet to see if I could find the other skein, and I didn't see it. I assumed that it would be kind of on the top, since it was a project that I had been working on, so I didn't dig deep. I just kind of looked on top of things, and I could not find another skein. I started searching Ravelry to see, are there any other people who have this yarn in this color and maybe could, maybe they used it for a project already but have a little bit left over, enough that I can knit 2 inches on the cuff. I did finally find my gauge swatch, And so I thought, okay, I don't know if there's enough yarn in the gauge swatch, but it would probably get me, well, definitely get me a lot closer. But it might get me close. So at the very least, I can unravel the gauge swatch and use it. But I just kept having this feeling in the back of my head. I'm like, but I can't be out of yarn, because I should have used more yarn because of that swingy front that I didn't have. The body should have taken up more yarn. So either I was way off at the beginning with my calculating how much yarn I needed, or there really is another skein of this somewhere. So that's when I started digging deep in my yarn closet, and I finally found one more skein of this yarn. So I wound that up. I did not unravel the gauge swatch because I was worried that the gauge swatch wouldn't be quite enough for the cuff, and I didn't want to, I basically didn't want to have more ends to weave in by like running out like right here and then having to use the new skein for like the very last part. So I went ahead and just wound the that final skein that I found, finished off the cuff, so I have almost a full skein of the yarn left that I can do something else with. Ooh, I think it's a DK weight yarn. I was actually looking for DK yarn for something else, so I'm gonna keep that in mind. Anyway, so yeah, so it's done. And it's nice and warm. I really like the color, and so I'm really happy with it, and I'll probably just continue to wear it for the rest of this episode. So yeah, that is what I finished recently. So basically, as I mentioned at the very beginning, I did not finish that last project for the gift along for the Opadu challenge, and it's still not finished. I am still working on it. Basically, once I figured out that I wasn't going to meet that challenge, I did keep on knitting up through the end of the year, so December 31st. And then January 1st, that's when I decided to go ahead and finish the second sleeve on this cardigan. And then after I finished this, I've come back to this project. But you can see, if you watched last time, that I do have a lot more done, so you can really see the waves. There you go. Really see the waves in the shawl. I did, and then since it's brioche, the other side looks really nice too. I did get finally to the decreases section, and so I am just under 100 stitches. And now we just kind of keep decreasing from here, and yeah, it should be moving along a lot faster at this point. So I'm really excuse me, really liking this project. Take some water. And I'm glad that and going back to that idea of joy, I'm glad that I did not rush myself and try to finish this in time. I also had a moment, so I had a friend come to visit, a friend who watches the podcast, so hi Regina. She came to visit and stayed over on the evening of the 30th. And so I was working on this, and she was knitting a project herself. Anyway, so I was working on that project, and I still had the day and evening left, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this really isn't going to happen. So I actually looked at bulky weight shawl patterns, because I still had to fit in the shawl category, or wrap. Bulky weight shawl patterns, to see if there was a designer in the gift along that I could do just really fast so that I could finish out the challenge. And I did do that, and showed some of the options to my friend, and I thought about, well, I don't have any bulky weight yarn, so maybe I need to hold something doubled. But the more and more I started kind of looking at it, the kind of worse I felt about it, because I felt, I don't really want a bulky weight shawl. I don't know what I would do with it. And B, that felt like cheating. That felt like I was just doing a super fast, quick project just to check it off a box and to complete the challenge. And I don't think I would have felt good about saying I completed the challenge if I had done it that way. So I decided, you know what? I would rather not finish the challenge than do this kind of very last minute bulky weight shawl just to get a shawl category. So I've decided I'm not going to rush this project. I'm going to knit it in my own time. It's brioche. I'm enjoying brioche, so there's the joy thing. It brings me joy. I'm liking the project, so I'm not going to rush it. It will get done, and it probably will get done before the next episode, you know, within the next 2 weeks. And that's okay that I didn't finish it in time for the challenge. So the other thing that I've been working on, 2 more things, is the socks. Always have a pair of socks on the go. So this is sock number 1. This is mustache yarn in the Everything is Awesome colorway. I think this was the very first mustache colorway I bought, either first or second. It was definitely right at the beginning. And I am somewhere in the middle of the foot on this one, but I think I mentioned last time that I got the Haya flyers, which are similar to the Addi Flexi Flips, but with sharp points on both ends, which I really like. And I really wanted to try those out, so I went ahead and cast on the second sock, even though I have not finished with the first. And you can see I'm almost through the leg of this second sock. And that's one thing I really like about Mustache, because she does the 2 matching half skeins together. It was really easy to start the second sock, even though the first sock wasn't done. So as far as the flyers go, yes, I like them better than the Addi Flexi Flips because of the sharp ends. They really do feel, besides the ends, they really do feel the same. So if you've tried the Flexi Flips and you don't like them, if it's not because of the tips, then you're probably is not going to make a difference to have these. If it is because of the tips, it will make a difference. So they're very, very similar as far as working with them. But the sharp tips are so much more enjoyable, even though this is just a straight stockinette sock. I can imagine, you know, doing those crazy cabled socks that I did for the tortoise sock. It would be so much easier on these. Almost to the point, though, that they're almost too sharp. I mean, they are, just even feeling them right now, they are really, really sharp. And sometimes when I've been working on them, I've actually poked my arm, or even kind of accidentally poked my stomach a little bit, and it's a little like ouch because they are pretty darn sharp. So these are things that like I will tell you about in a little bit. I have a plane trip coming up because I'm going to be flying to Flyaway, but I have another plane trip coming up later this year, and I do not think I will take these on the plane, because even if they allow me to take them on, I wouldn't really feel comfortable if there's a lot of turbulence while I'm trying to knit. Yeah, that might really hurt if it accidentally got away and stabbed someone, myself or the person next to me. So they are really, really sharp. Great for when you need that, but you gotta kind of be careful that you don't hurt yourself. So I've been working on that. And then the other project I've been working on, somebody sent me information about a mystery knit along that is Hamilton based. So Lyrical Knits is, I think it's Mary Anarella. Oh, Lyrical Knits is her designing name. She is doing a mystery knit along called Young, Scrappy, and Cozy. So it's a cowl that's got some kind of shawl shaping going on with it. And there are Hamilton references in it. So I thought that sounded really, really fantastic, and I decided to take part. I know some of you who watch this are also participating in this mystery knit along. So I'm going to show you what I have done. This is a mystery knit along. This is Clue 1. I finished Clue 1 last night. That's all we have right now. We get to Clue 2, I think on Saturday. So this is Clue 1. Other people have been posting this on Instagram and whatnot, so maybe you've seen this, but if you are doing this mystery knit along and you're not there yet, or you just really don't want to know what things are looking like yet, go ahead and fast forward a little bit, just basically until the next section, so you don't see this. Just a little spoiler alert, since this is a mystery knit along. So here it goes. I'm going to show you guys now. So this is what it looks like so far. So you start out by doing a garter tab cast on, so you're working, going this way out. It is 3 colors, and I am using the blue. The turquoise is the same color that I used in one of my brioche hats that I did. is the hat that's based on Sizzle Pop. Both the brioche hats I did were Leslie Ann Robinson. So that's the blue from that hat. The orange is the orange from my other brioche hat that I did. And then the gray is that I had in my stash. I didn't really have any leftover DK weight yarn because this is a DK weight. Enough that really worked with the colors to get enough contrast, because as you can see, you do need some contrast in the colors to be able to see the patterning. So far this has been enjoyable. It involves a lot of slip stitches. So this is not color work, these are all slip stitches. So you're only working one color at a time across each row. There were quite a few ends to weave in, and there are 3 rules to the mystery knit along, and the third one is to weave in your ends as you go. And of course there's a little like haha, like, you know, I know not everyone does that, but I went ahead and wove in my ends. So they are all done, and they won't be, at least this section won't be staring me in the face whenever I finish this. But anyway, yeah, I'm enjoying this, working on it, and it's fun. The designer is throwing in little comments in the pattern about Hamilton, so if you're familiar with it, then you can, you know, you can get the little lines that she throws in. So that's really enjoyable. And so if you haven't heard about it yet, it's you know, depending on when you're watching this, it's still going on, and you can definitely join in. I will link to the pattern in the show notes. So that's really what has been getting my attention. I do still have a couple of other projects on the needles that have been in hibernation that will be taken out of hibernation soon. Once I finish that brioche shawl, I'm going to go back to the other shawl that I've been working on for a while, the 3 sheets shawl that I'm making out of my Cornwall yarn. I definitely want to finish that. I want to finish it in time for DFW Fiber Fest because I would like it to be a sample. And then I have Boxy still on the needles, so I've finished 2 sweater projects, and I need to finish off that one as well. So, you know, there are things that are occupying me, but there are also things I'm really itching to cast on. So we'll see what happens, and what I have to share with you guys next time. So as far as Roundtable Yarns news, like I said, I am embracing where I am right now and not worrying about reaching specific huge numbers. So basically, what I'm working on now is prepping for DFW Fiber Fest. I have, that's kind of the start of what I consider my show season. Although there is that Winter Fiber Fun Retreat in February where I'm teaching a class, actually 2 classes. I'm teaching all about the yarn, so I'm gonna be having yarn samples and letting the students, you know, talking about the difference between 2-ply and 3-ply and single-ply. What if you have alpaca versus bamboo versus whatever type of wool, and how tight the twist is, so all of those things and how that affects your project. So I'm teaching that. I've also picked up a second class from a teacher who had to cancel, but there were people enrolled in the class, so they wanted the class still to be taught. So it's on beginner cables. So basically, if you've never done cables before and you're coming to the retreat and you'd like to learn how, I will be teaching that class now too. So I do have that, and I will have a little booth with yarn to sell there. But really the big thing that I'm working on is DFW, because that is like my biggest event of the year. Basically getting everything dyed for that is what carries me through the rest of the year. You know, I dye to fill in things for what sold at different events, but that's kind of my really big starting stock. So I've got a lot of dyeing to do between now and then, and I've got my plan of, you know, this is what I need to dye. I've actually looked to see how many days that I have, and it is feasible to do that. So I just have to, you know, keep working at it every day. Yeah, so I'm excited about my show schedule. I've got DFW the very beginning of April. Houston Fiber Fest is in June. I got the official acceptance letter recently. So that's exciting to know for sure that I will be back in Houston, because that's also a really, really good show. So that's in June. In September, the end of September, I'm doing the Fiber Fun and the Sip in Vicksburg, I believe it's Vicksburg, Mississippi. So that is a new to me festival. It'll be the second year of that particular festival. So that's in September. And then in November, I will be doing the East Texas Fiber Festival, which is going to be in a different location. So it was in Linden, Texas. It's going to be, I think it's Linden, right? It's going to be in Canton. This year, we're 2019, so this year. So a different location where hopefully the lighting is a lot better. So those are kind of my 4 big events for the year. And maybe there will be some other things. But that's kind of the big things that I'm planning. So that's what I'm working on. There are self-striping colorways, new ones that I have planned to do, as well as restocking some of the older ones. So I'm working on that as well. And I've really been thinking about kind of how my booth is going to look at DFW. I want to make sure it's as full as possible. It is a double booth again, so I want to show them that I deserve a double booth because booth space is in high demand. So I want to make sure that I have plenty of yarn to have there. So what I've been doing is I've started dyeing yarn, and not even after it's ready to go, I've not been listing everything on the website. I've actually been putting things aside to hold for DFW Fiber Fest, because I think it looks better if I have, I do dye lots in batches of 4. If I have, 4 of each colorway to start out with, rather than if I have 4 of this colorway, but 3 of this one and 2 of this one and 1 of this one, or there are 3, but they're in 2 different dye lots, or, a mix like that. I would like to really have kind of fresh 4 skeins, all the same dye lot of as many colors as possible. So to do that, I can't list things on the website, because if 1 skein out of a dye lot sells, and now I've got 3, and I don't have that full 4. So I'm doing a lot more dyeing than you are going to see on the website in the next few months. I'm just going to try that out and see how it goes. Maybe that's shooting myself in the foot a bit, because I'm not having a lot of stuff on the website for you guys to buy. But it does mean possibly that if you do want something and you have a custom order, let's say you custom order, like I know I have like 4 skeins of Poisoned Apple on Camelot. That's one thing that I've set aside. So let's say you really wanted 4 skeins of Camelot on Poisoned Apple and you put in a custom order. Well, guess what? I'm going to go ahead and send you what I've already dyed, so I can go ahead and get you your order quickly. So possibly if you make a custom order, I might already have something in stock technically, even though it's not on the website. So if you are looking at a custom order, go ahead and do that. And maybe I'll surprise you and get something sent earlier. Maybe not, but it'll depend on what I have. Right now I'm working on Camelot. So after that, I will probably work on Merlin, the semi-solid tonal Merlin, and then kind of go from there. But those are the kind of big 2 bases that I'm really focusing on. So speaking of bases, I also have a new base. I just emailed my mailing list yesterday to talk about this. This is an example. This is Gareth. Lighting is not, I'll show you, there you go. So this is Gareth, which is a worsted weight yarn. This is the yarn that I used for the hemophilia fundraiser that was in either red, white, or blue that you could get it in. Now I've dyed it in other colors. I had 20 skeins remaining from after the fundraiser, and so I dyed up those 20 skeins, 5 colors, 4 of each color, and I've listed them on the website. 2 of the colorways have already sold out. I think sold out completely. Or maybe it's 1 colorway is sold out and there are 2 colorways that have each sold 2. Anyway, basically 8 skeins have sold. Yay! So it's exciting to see that happening, but there are a few skeins left. So if you are looking for some worsted weight yarn, this color and then a couple of other colors, yeah, it's very similar to what I've got here. Sorry, that's a text message there. anyway, so I've got a couple of other colors that are on the website, so I will link to that in the show notes. If you want some worsted weight yarn, you can look for that. So looking at my list of things to talk about, I think that's really it. So basically, I'm just going to be focusing on doing, oh no, there is one more thing. I'm going to be focusing on doing, you know, what I need to do to have good booths at shows. I'm going to focus on trying to get you guys what you want. And I'm not going to worry about whether or not I have tons and tons of sales every day, which I've never had, like, tons and tons of sales every day, or even like, you know, multiple sales in a day is not a common thing. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to do what I do. And I know you guys who love the yarn, when you need yarn, I'm there. But there are some things that I'm doing that are a little secret, a little under wraps, so I'm going to tell you about a bit. So kind of to help out with not just feeling like I'm dyeing the same old thing, which I still love all the colors, but sometimes, you know, if you've done the same color multiple times, as much as you love it, it can get a little, you know, boring isn't quite the right word, but repetitive, I guess. So I've been exploring some different dyeing techniques, and I know I've said in the past that I really didn't want to do any speckled yarns. I've kind of found a way to make it a little bit safer for me, for my situation, because speckling involves having dry dye powder, gosh, that's hard to say, which is, it's dangerous to breathe in, so I'm always wearing a mask anyway, but also it gets everywhere. It gets on lots of different surfaces. So I was concerned, especially since I dye in my kitchen, that I didn't want to get dye powder all over the kitchen. So I've taken some kind of precautions to cut back on having that possibility happening. So I've been doing some speckled yarns. Let me show you some examples. So I've got this guy. And I've got, let me show you some different colors. Obviously this is kind of in my wheelhouse, but I tried something that was slightly outside my regular yarns. Let's see. I've got this one that I did kind of a gray background and some different colored speckles. So right now I've counted up, I've got 10, this is all on the Merlin base. I have 10 skeins of this, and I am doing these as one of a kinds because I'm doing them in a small dye pot rather than my bigger ones. One of a kinds, I'm not writing down what I'm doing, I am just playing with color. And so I'm not posting these up for sale yet. I'm going to build up a stock of them, and I'm going to unveil them at DFW Fiberfest. That will be the first place that I have them, and then I'll bring them to the rest of the shows throughout the year. They will mostly be things that I do at shows rather than post on the website, but I will, after DFW, I will post some on the website for those of you who can't make it to shows. And they're going to be called adventure yarns. So they'll be all the bases that you guys are familiar with, but the colorway, instead of having a specific name, it will be adventure number whatever. Like I do with Quest colorways that are one of a kind, semi-solids and tonals. These speckles, and I'll also be doing possibly some variegateds, will be adventure colorways. So I'll have a section, my plan is to have a section at fiber festivals to have a certain location where all the adventure colorways are located. So they'll be one of a kinds. If you like it, you'd have to grab it because, like I said, I'm not writing things down. I'm just throwing color on yarn and seeing what happens. So that's been fun to play with. I've been enjoying doing that, trying to keep my dyeing safe with the speckles as much as possible, and just having fun. So you guys got a little bit of a sneak peek. I didn't really yet want to talk about that because I do want it to, because DFW Fiberfest is still a couple of months away, but it's actually not that far away. So I thought I would go ahead and show that to you guys to see what you think about that. Yeah, so things going on with Roundtable Yarns. So this time there are 2 questions in the questions for Karen thread. So I'm actually going to start with the second one. And this one comes from A Simple Motif, who asks, are you going to Into the Wool this year? Since I listed off my list of events earlier, probably at this point you're figuring out that the answer is no. And unfortunately that means, yes, the answer is no. I am not going to Into the Wool this year. Not because I don't want to. I really, really want to. I greatly enjoyed it and I would go back in a heartbeat. The reason I'm not going is a scheduling issue. The weekend of Into the Wool, I have another event that that I need to go to that was already scheduled, and then the very following week is the Mississippi Fiber Fest, and it would be I could possibly do it, but it would be a challenge to do 2 out-of-town events back to back. Although I am going to Playa, just not as a vendor. I am going to Playa, which is right after DFW Fiber Fest, so I am doing those 2 trips kind of back to back. But as a vendor, it would be hard for me to do 2 back-to-back trips. But like I said, I also already had an event scheduled for the same weekend as Into the Wool that I need to go to. So I would desperately like to go back this year, but I'm not going to be there this year. My goal is to try to make it back next year, so in 2020. I definitely would like to make it to Into the Wool if at all possible. So I'm sorry if you were planning on going and wanted to know if I was going to be there also. Not this year, but if you are thinking about going, it is really a fabulous retreat and I highly recommend it. So I hope that if you're thinking of going, either Erica, who asked the question, or anyone else, definitely go. The signups are going to be coming up soon. I don't remember the exact date, but I think it's next month. But if you go to the Into the Wool Ravelry group, that's where you can get all the most information. So it's not actually the Into the Wool website. The Ravelry group is the place that really has the most up-to-date information. And there is a thread that gives you info on the 2019 retreat, and it has the date of the sign up. It is a retreat that fills up fast, so if you are interested in going, you want to make sure to put that sign up on your calendar, set an alarm on your phone, so you go and sign up as soon as those signups open. Because like I said, it has in the past filled up pretty quickly. So great retreat, wish I could go, just not schedule-wise, not feasible this year. But hopefully next year. So the other question comes from Christy Rose, who asks, when you substitute a heavier weight yarn in a pattern, do the proportions remain the same? For example, a pattern calls for 400 yards of fingering weight yarn. If I substitute worsted weight yarn and increase the hook size, how much yarn would I need? Around 400 yards? 2 skeins of Gareth, so the worsted weight yarn. Okay. I had planned to do this like experiment to really give a good answer for this, and I did not, I'll be honest, I did not make the time for the experiment and I ran out of time. I still want to do this experiment though, so hopefully I will do it. My plan was to take a fingering weight yarn and a worsted weight yarn, use appropriate needle sizes for each one, and knit a swatch using, I wasn't sure if I wanted to knit like a stockinette swatch or if I wanted to do like a lace pattern or something, but basically do the same thing for both swatches. So the same number of stitches, same number of rows. And then at the end of that, basically unravel the swatch and measure the yarn, and instead of like measuring it on a yardstick or something, I was actually going to measure it against each other and see if the same amount of yarn was used in the fingering weight and the worsted weight swatches, or if, as I'm kind of thinking, the worsted weight used more. So that was my plan for my experiment, and if you don't want to wait for me to do it, maybe that's an experiment that you could try yourself. Not just Christy, anybody try this experiment. If you do try it, I would love to get your results and hear how that went. But at some point I will try that experiment. I tried to research the question, but either my Google Foo was not working, or people just haven't specifically answered this question, at least that I could find. But the only thing that I could find usually was people saying that if you change the weight of yarn, even if you change the needle size and change the needle size accordingly, you will use a different amount of yarn. So that statement I saw in multiple places, that it is not the same amount of yarn. You would use different amounts of yarn. But it didn't go into any detail beyond that. So I started thinking about it, and just if you're using worsted weight yarn, the stitches themselves are going to be bigger. And so the stitches themselves are going to take up a little bit more yarn. So I'm going to hypothesize that you would use more worsted weight yarn compared to fingering weight yarn, but without actually doing that experiment and trying it out, I can't say for sure one way or the other. But that's kind of my thought, that because the stitches, and you mentioned a hook, so I'm going to assume it's similar in crochet as well, because the stitches themselves are going to be bigger, more length of yarn is going to be used, so therefore you would need more worsted weight yarn, but I'm not 100% sure. If one of you guys actually knows the answer to that, then please let me know. There actually was, in the question from last time about beads, there actually was some extra information that was posted both on YouTube and on Ravelry. So I really appreciate that extra information going along with the answer that I gave. So if you have information on this question from Christy, I would definitely like to know, because until I do that experiment, or I somehow figure out how to find the right search word for Google to find somebody else who has actually answered this question, I'm not 100% sure. So I'm sorry, Christy, that doesn't completely answer your question, but it definitely has placed a little seed in my mind of that experiment that I want to run and see what happens. So thank you very much for asking your questions. If you have a question that you would like me to answer, hopefully better answers than I have been giving, go ahead and post in the questions for Karen thread over on Ravelry, and I will link to that in the show notes. So something else that I wasn't really sure where to put in as far as a segment, so I'm going to put it in the what I'm reading and watching segment. Reading, I am still reading the Dark is Rising series by Susan Cooper that I mentioned last time. I am in the middle of the 4th book. There are 5 books, so I'm in the middle of book 4. I can't remember last time if I mentioned that I am planning a series of self-striping yarns based on this series of books. If not, hey, there's a little announcement. I do have an idea for some self-striping yarns that are inspired by this book series. Anyway, so really enjoying going back and reading a book that I loved so much, a book series that I loved so much when I was younger. I think it has been quite a few years since I've read it, because there are things happening that I really don't remember the specifics. I remember kind of the bigger picture things, but I don't remember the specifics. So it's fun to almost be surprised a little bit again with these books. Anyway, so that's what I'm reading. As far as what I'm watching, a lot of shows have been on hiatus, so there's not been a huge lot of things that I've been watching, but one show that I have been watching is Outlander, and I really, really love the books, and I think overall the TV series has been doing a really good job. Yes, there have been some changes and things, but I think they are staying true mostly to the characters and to the feel of the books. So I'm really greatly enjoying those, and I'm bringing that up because I want to talk about Scotland. So here's my little, segue into talking about something that doesn't quite fit in a segment. So Karen Hooley, who is a crochet designer, I probably mentioned her in the past. I have a couple of samples of her designs in my booth. She, in her email newsletter, sent out a link about Anne Podlesack, who is a knitwear designer. She dyes yarn under the name Woolly Wonka Fibers. She has a podcast as well, which I think is Woolly Wonka. And she apparently is putting together a trip to Scotland later this year. So I am so thankful to Karen. That's why I'm mentioning it. I'm so thankful to Karen for putting that in her newsletter, because even though I know Anne, and Anne actually has been the photographer for some of my my knitting patterns, even though I know Anne, I don't get her email newsletters, and I'm not in her Ravelry group, and I haven't watched her podcast in a while, so I wouldn't have missed this trip announcement if not for Karen. So anyway, so Anne is organizing a trip to Scotland at the end of October. The end of October as in, so be in Scotland over Halloween, because the name of the trip is Samhain in Scotland, because apparently in Edinburgh on October 31st, so Halloween night, which is also Samhain, they do this apparently celebration type of thing. So the trip will actually get to, the people on the trip will actually get to watch the celebration, kind of be part of that. Anyway, so I'm looking at the itinerary for the trip, which I'll tell you a little bit about in just a second, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, this seems like a really, really fabulous trip. I would love to go on it. And I looked at the dates, and I think it's October 22nd to November 1st, and I'm thinking, that's like right in between two shows. There's not a show right before it, not a show right after, although East Texas is not too far after. That one, I think it's 2 weekends later, I think. Need to look at the dates again. And I'm just looking at it and thinking, oh, I would really love to go on this trip. So I talked to my husband. I was like, this trip opportunity came up. This would be really fabulous. I would like to go. It's you know, it's a bit challenging because he does work full time, and you know, if I'm gone for what is it, 10, I think it's 9 days, then we've got Luke to worry about, and he'll be in school much of the time, but that would mean that my husband would have to like leave work early to pick up Luke from school, or we'd have to figure something. Anyway, so there are logistical things plus the cost. And so my husband and I talked about it, and he said that if I really wanted to go, that could be my, you know, like Mother's Day, birthday, Christmas present for the year, and I could go. So I sent in my deposit on Monday, and as of, I talked to Anne over the weekend, and I think at that point the trip was about half full. There are 20 spots, which I think also counts Anne plus our tour guide, so really there are 18 spots. And she says she thinks it's about half full at this point. It does need to reach 15 for the trip to go forward. If 15 is the minimum, if that does not get met, then the trip would get canceled. Which, gosh, that would be so heart-wrenching to be excited about this trip and then not have it meet the minimum. But I'm hopeful, especially if she just announced it, especially if at this point it's already at the halfway point. But that does mean there are some spots still open. So if that is something that you are potentially interested in, I will link in the show notes to the Ravelry thread where Anne has posted information. I think that's the easiest place to find the information. You will have to be a member of Ravelry to be able to read the thread, which I think most of you guys who watch this are knitters, so you're probably a member of Ravelry. But I'm just gonna kind of throw that out there. So I will link to that so you can get some of the information, and then you can contact Anne if you want the registration form and where to send in the deposit. But basically, it's flying into Edinburgh and then going straight up to Inverness. It's mostly going to be in the northern part of Scotland, so I'm expecting it to be really cold, which means I'll get to wear knitwear. So going up to Inverness for a little bit, and then I think just one night, and then up to, I think it's called John O'Groats, which is the northernmost point of the mainland of Scotland, and I think it's 2 days there, and then going to the Orkney Islands. I think that's really kind of what has really gotten me. I mean, I'm excited about Scotland, but going up to the Orkney Islands, and it's not just like a little day trip to the Orkney Islands. I think it's like 2 or 3 days. I think it's 2 full days on the Orkney Islands. and getting to do things there. And this is there will also be knitting and yarn and fiber related things that we're doing as part of this trip. So spending time there, taking an overnight ferry, so that'll be interesting, to Aberdeen, and spending a day or two there, and then back to Edinburgh for some time there, and then the Samhain celebration, and then coming home on November 1st. So I'm really excited about it. Like I said, I hope the minimum number of people sign up, so that way it doesn't get canceled, because that would be horrible. But I'm really excited about even the possibility of being able to do this. I kind of can't believe that that I said yes to it and didn't just say, oh, that would be really nice. Because to be honest, I've had 2 other opportunities in the past 2 years to go to Scotland, and either I made an excuse because, oh, I don't think I can take that much time away, or it's a bad timing, or I don't think that I can afford it. And I've said no to them. And again, this year, I want to embrace that joy. That Scotland is one of my top 3 travel destinations that I want to go to. So if I have this opportunity, I'm really thrilled that timing wise it works out, and we're working on the budgeting wise part of it as well. And I decided that I'm not going to pass up opportunities like this if I can do it. So I'm really excited about that, and maybe one of you guys watching is excited too, and potentially has the time and the funds to be able to do this trip. If so, again, check the show notes for the link, and sign up soon. There's not a hard and fast deadline for the deposit, Anne says, but obviously they need to know fairly soon whether or not the trip is going to make, or potentially the trip could fill up, and then it would go to a waiting list. So if you're interested, check out the show notes and get the details of the trip. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. So I'm kind of talking about the trip into watching Outlander, but especially since part of the trip does go to Inverness, and Inverness is the place where basically the outside of Inverness is where the Stone Circle that gets used for the time travel part of Outlander. There's a connection there, sure, right? Anyway, so that's what I've been reading, watching, and planning for a trip. So the Q4 knit along last quarter ended. There were lots of really gorgeous shawls that you guys made out of yarn from your stash, and the winner was chosen. It was a simple motif, Erica, who won the hand spun yarn, and I sent that off to her, so hopefully she will enjoy that. For this quarter, Q1 knit along, we did a poll, with the theme ideas, and there were 2 ideas that were kind of out in the lead, and they were very similar ideas, so we decided to combine them into one thing. So the official theme for Q1 is to finish any project, and not just a shawl, any project that is hanging over your head. And I am choosing to interpret this pretty widely. It could be a project that's hanging over your head because it's been on the needles or hook forever and you want to finish it. This, because I did the second sleeve right at the beginning of the year. This is my project for the Q1 knit along. There are actually 2 other projects that I'd like to potentially finish as well, but this counts because that final sleeve has been hanging over my head for quite some time, and so I finally sat down and did it. So it can be that type of project. Maybe it is a gift, a holiday gift that you did not get finished, that you really feel like you need to finish. That will work. Maybe it's, a lot of us seem to have these Afghan projects that are like these ongoing projects. Maybe you're tired of that being ongoing and you just want to get it done, or you want to definitely at least make a lot more progress on it. I see several of you guys have posted about Afghan projects. Or maybe even it's a project you have not started yet, but it's something you've had the yarn, you've had the pattern, you've been meaning to cast on for years, and you still have not done it. that's, I think, a project that's hanging over your head. It's okay that it's not already on the needles. You have been planning this project for a while, and for whatever reason, you have not started it. Start it, finish it. Let that be your Q1 project. So like I said, any project that is kind of weighing on you, something that you want to get done, whether or not it has started, whatever stage of the process it's been in. Maybe I know somebody, it's not somebody that I think watches a podcast, but I know somebody who hates blocking, and so she finishes like tons and tons and tons of projects, but they all sit in a big pile, not blocked. So usually she'll have this giant blocking day where she does like 10 projects in one day. So maybe that could be something that's hanging over your head. Now you have, 10, 12, 20 projects that have to be blocked and you haven't done it. You're going to sit down this quarter and make sure that you take that last step and finish those projects. So really widely interpret this theme. And I don't know yet what the prize or prizes will be. I'm still kind of thinking about that, and I will let you guys know when I decide upon that. I usually try to tie it somehow to the theme. I'm not really sure exactly how to tie a specific prize to that theme. So it might just be, some random fun prizes. Anyway, so I will get back to you guys once I figure that out. But go over to the Ravelry group and post your intentions. What project or projects are hanging over your head, and what do you plan to finish in this quarter. And that's it for this episode. Thank you so very much for watching. Please feel free to leave a comment here or come over to the Ravelry group discussion thread for this episode and tell me all about your thoughts about anything that I've said. Like I said, that community, that is what is the most important to me. And until next time, happy knitting!